Majora's Mask, Chapter 11. The Woods of Mystery.
I hate that stupid hag,
Tattle said. Link closed the hut door behind them as they stepped into the muggy air. They were in a completely different area of the swamp. This was not the hut he'd fainted in front of. The witch's shop was on a tall, raised platform in the middle of a shallow pond, surrounded by a grassy bank enclosed by forest. Directly behind the building, a rock face broke the tree line, continuing out of sight and boasting a narrow waterfall that bled into the pond. A small stream in front of the shop snaked through the forest, which was the only visible path that avoided dense trees. It was impossible to tell where they'd come from, but he wagered it was over the waterway.
You heard her, right?
Tattle continued.
It wasn't just me imagining things?
Link turned to face her, once again green-hatted and clothed in his kokiri tunic. After healing him, the witch had sewn the lightning strike's hole shut. His belt held his ocarina again, and his boots were no longer coated in choo-choo jelly. His shield was clean too. Resting atop his sword returned to its scabbard. The bag contained his Deku mask. His chest wound was still sore, but it had been reduced to a faint, pulsing pain, though it didn't physically look much better.
Yeah, I heard her,
Link said, turning to see if the witch, Kotake, was listening through the window.
But I'm not sure what to think. Everything she said was complete garbage,
Tattle exclaimed.
I don't know, Tattle,
he replied, turning to climb down the ladder.
What do you mean? She was being a complete idiot, and she didn't listen to anything we said about Majora's Mask. She is in total denial.
Yeah, but how do we know the mask salesman even knows what Majora's Mask is? She seemed pretty frightened by it, and I think she understands it more than we do.
The mask salesman knows everything, though,
Tattle pointed out. At the ladder's bottom, Link touched the soft ground beneath the shallow pond.
At least, he seems like he does.
Maybe, but he hardly shared anything with us, Link said. We should pay the masked salesman a visit once we leave the swamp and get him to answer more of our questions about this place, the mask, and all that other stuff.
This place? You mean Termina?
Tattle narrowed her eyes in confusion.
I can answer anything about that. I've lived here almost my whole life.
Almost your whole life? Really? Then where were you before Termina?
That was a long time ago, Link.
See? My first question, and you couldn't answer it.
That wasn't even a question about Termina.
Tattle sighed.
Anyways, I agree that the other questions are important. We should go see the masked salesman. It might make following Tails' directions a little easier.
We can't leave yet, Link said, looking out at the forest.
Why not?
Because we have to find
Kome. Kotake said her sister's name was Kome.
Yeah, her. We promised, and I need to pay her back for saving me. Tattle rolled her eyes.
Does it really matter, Link? Once we play the Song of Time, it'll be like we never helped her. Kome lost in the woods, and the stupid old hag spazzing it up in her shack again.
We can't think like that, Link protested, or else we'll never get anything done. Tails said to find the four who are there, right? How do you know Kome and Kotake aren't two of them?
My My brother wasn't very specific, was he?
No, he wasn't. So I think we should snoop around the swamp and keep an eye out for someone helpful. Besides, once we play the Song of Time, we'll appear right in front of the mask salesman.
Fine,
Tattle sighed.
Let's go do some hero stuff then.
All right, Link agreed, keeping his eyes on the tree line. He was looking for an entrance or a path. The cloudy sky rumbled with thunder, hiding daylight behind a gray sheet. The first day had already come and gone.
Where do you propose we break this tree line, Mr. Hero?
That way, Link answered, pointing to a random spot when he couldn't find a path.
Any reason that way stood out?
Because it's the prettiest, Link joked, daring to banter with Tattle. It wasn't something he risked often. The fairy raised an eyebrow.
They all look the same, Link. That's why it's called the Woods of Mystery. Aren't we worried about getting lost?
My ocarina can take us back to Clocktown no matter where we are, Link reassured her. His boots splashed in shin-deep water as he started their venture.
I'm no longer comforted by your ocarina's powers. You had the ocarina when the Skull Kid shot you in the chest, and when the Wolfos tried to eat you. You almost died, both times. The ocarina didn't help.
But this time will be different.
Sure, Link, sure,
Tattle said. When they stepped into the forest, the green canopy blocked out the sun's already feeble light. Darkness engulfed them. Link's footsteps passed from a wet riverbed to moist grass. Tattle remained by his side, shaking when a raindrop made its way through the canopy into her glowing orb. They continued onward, deeper into the forest and away from the swamp. The heavy smells of wet mugginess were replaced by damp, earthy bark.
Are you sure this is a good idea?
Tattle asked again. The swamp was already completely obscured behind them.
We're walking blindly into the Woods of Mystery without knowing where we're going, with no way to find our way back.
What else could we do? Asked Link, stepping over a large root carefully. Kotake wasn't very specific when she told us where her sister was.
You're hoping we just stumble upon her? Do you ever think anything through?
I know what I'm doing, Tattle, Link retorted. I lived in a forest almost my whole life.
Almost your whole life? Really?
Tattle said mockingly as she smiled to herself.
Then, where were you before you lived in a forest?
Link glared up at her, tripping over a root when he did. He managed not to fall, dusting off his tunic as he blushed.
Clearly, they didn't teach you how to walk through a forest in all those years you lived there.
Be quiet, Tattle. Link refrained from saying more, refusing to fuel her sarcasm the way Kotake had. I'm not nearly as witty as either one of them, Link reflected. I can't keep up. Tattle, surprisingly, gave no response. Only silence accompanied Link's footsteps for a time, which worried him. You okay, Tattle? He asked. I didn't actually mean for you to stop talking.
Psh, like I never shut up because you asked me to, she said. I was just thinking about the other side of the mountains and what's across the canyon and the ocean. I've never really thought about those things before. It's weird. Almost like it was never something anyone wanted to or should think about. It's hard to explain, you coming from Hyrule and all, but you've made me curious, Link. I'm just not sure if that's a good or bad thing yet.
At least someone here is taking my questions seriously, Link thought. You said this forest was uncharted, didn't you? That the end of it would mark the end of Termina?
Yeah,
Tattle stammered. Then why don't we keep going straight? Eventually we'll reach new lands, won't we? That suggestion made Tattle visibly nervous.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Aw, come on. Don't chicken out on me now, Tattle. You said a few seconds ago that you thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, but I didn't think we'd do anything about it so soon.
If we don't do it now, then when will we? Link said. If the border happens to mark the edge of a massive cliff, I promise we won't leap thoughtlessly into a never-ending abyss. Okay?
If you say so, Link.
Tattle finally acquiesced. She's really terrified, Link thought. Why is she so afraid of leaving Termina? Even looking over the border intimidated Tattle. And it wasn't only her. No one in Termina seemed to know anything about the outside world. The masked salesman was the singular exception. Even Anju, who he swore seemed so familiar, had no clue of its existence. Anju! Link exclaimed, stopping immediately. Tattle practically bumped into him.
Yes, Anju. She's the clerk at the Stockpot
Inn. No, Tattle, I remember! Pure disbelief and discovery baffled him. How could I forget so easily? He wondered. We were really good friends. Me, her, and Zelda spent so much time together in Kakariko Village. She was a cuckoo keeper. She was engaged to Cafe.
What are you talking about?
Tattle asked.
Did those swamp fumes finally get to your head? What's Kakariko Village? Who's Zelda? And yes, I already know Anju is engaged to Cafe.
No, Tattle. Was engaged. Cafe's dead. The fairy's tone immediately lost her sarcasm.
Cafe's dead? And you didn't tell her?
After the Wolfos attacked, I remembered something while I was knocked out. Kotake said I'd been talking in my sleep, but these weren't just dreams. They were memories. I knew Anju as a good friend, and when I left to find Navi, I said goodbye to her.
Are you sure?
Tattle asked. She was such a bright light in the dark forest, watching Link carefully.
How could you forget something like that? If she was your best friend, then why didn't you say something when you met her? You two acted like strangers.
But that's the thing, Link said. His face still beamed with excitement. I swore I'd seen her from somewhere else, but I couldn't figure out where.
That still doesn't make any sense,
Tattle persisted.
How could you just forget about her? Did you hit your head when you fell down that hole?
No, Link said, concentrating as he tried putting more puzzle pieces together. This place is so different, but it has so many similarities to Hyrule. Even though no one here has heard of it, Termina's like a different world entirely, but also a mirror image of Hyrule. Tattle's face was blank with disbelief.
Do you even hear yourself, Link? A different world? I think the better explanation is that it was just a dream. You've never met Anju or Cafe outside of Termina. They just appeared in your Hyrule dreams because, well, it's a dream. Anything can happen in those. Plus, those two things are probably on your mind a lot. It makes sense that they'd get mixed up together.
I don't think so, Tattle. It feels so real now that I remember it.
Yeah, dreams are supposed to feel real. That's the point of them.
Link scoffed, putting his hand to his forehead as he grasped for an explanation. I know her. I know I do. But how could I forget so much? It was hurting his head to press the matter further. Tattle continued in his place.
Besides, how could this be a different world? You traveled on your horse to the forest, and then the Skull Kid robbed you. When did you have time to switch dimensions?
Link realized he didn't have an answer. How did I get to the forest again? He wondered. He remembered the plan. Travel on Epona over Death Mountain and into the forests on the other side. But he couldn't remember the specifics. What happened after I left Anju's house? Did something bad happen on Death Mountain? He felt the answer was yes, though a vast field of blankness prevented him from remembering. As if my mind doesn't want me to. An image flashed across his mind. Himself, riding on Epona as fast as he could. The sun shone brightly behind him. Please, Link remembered thinking. Don't let this happen. This can't be real. The memory sent a bolt of pain across his skull, and he shirked away from the recollection, grabbing his head and squeezing his eyes shut. He felt a throb from the scar on his chest, too.
You okay?
I'm fine, Link said, opening his eyes to continue walking. Let's just keep going straight until we reach either Colme or the end of the forest. You're probably right, Tattle. It was just a dream. Tattle was so good at reading him already. He could see the disbelief all over her face.
Okay, Link. I can do that. Let's keep... Hey, watch out!
Something knocked Link out from under his feet, and he landed jarringly on his back. He scrambled to his feet, checking his now flaring ankles to find 2 fresh cuts ripped open. Blood glistened in the grass near the gashes. They'd been hit simultaneously by the creature coming to stop in front of him, a turtle-like animal. Its tough green body was encased in a much tougher, darker shell. The shell was rimmed with pointed spikes, threatening to slice open anything that rubbed against it. The turtle's yellow eyes looked at Link wickedly as it turned back to face him. Link's ankles pained him as he stood, but he ignored that as the creature brought its body back into its shell. The beast spun around silently, those sharp edges spinning dangerously toward him again. Link jumped out of the way, rolling to land on his feet and face the enemy. He drew his weapons when the creature didn't stop. This time, it continued in an arc to attack a third time. Link held up his shield, and the creature slammed into its metal surface, jagged edges first. The impact knocked Link onto his butt once more, but the creature blasted backward as well, exiting its shell dizzily. Link was much quicker to recover. It hardly regained its senses when Link brought his sword over the creature's exposed head. Ha! Ha! Its life ended just like that. He'd finally quenched his Kokiri blade's thirst for blood. Link panted, backing away from the dead turtle thing as he stared at its corpse. The green skin became red where its head had been severed at the neck. Tattle and Link stood there in surprise, shock, and even admiration as the hero caught his breath.
Whoa!
Tattle said.
Way less melodramatic than your fights usually are. No more weak, puny Deku Scrub battles for us. I could get used to this.
What was that? Link asked, ignoring the fairy's sarcasm. He wiped the excess blood dripping from his blade on the nearest tree trunk.
That was a snapper. They're pretty nasty. They won't attack if we keep walking, though. I think if we hadn't stopped to chat, this wouldn't have happened.
Right, Link replied, returning his blade and shield to his back. Guess this means we should keep moving?
Genius!
Tattle exclaimed.
Why didn't I think of that?
Link smiled, leaving behind the snapper's body with Tattle right beside him.
What have we learned today, boys and girls? She said. Don't discuss crazy alternate universe theories while in the middle of a beast-infested forest, or turtles will slash your ankles.
Link stared down at the pile of wet wood angrily. His green hat was heavy and completely drenched. His blue eyes watched dejectedly as rain poured from above the trees to soak his would-be fire. Tattle floated silently behind him, trying her best to refrain from laughing.
Are you, just gonna stare at it all day?
The second day was almost over, as the hidden sunset behind the gray clouds revealed. Thunder rumbled in the distance as Link's hat slid from his head and hit the ground. He sighed, ignoring the blonde hair crumpling wetly to his forehead.
Link, we shouldn't waste any time. It's already the second night, and we still have no idea who we're supposed to find. That gives us only 36 hours before everything we've done is erased.
There's nothing to erase, Link countered. He picked up his hat and wrung some water out of it before dropping it in his bag. The cuts in the back of his ankles still stung, but they'd stopped bleeding long ago. It'd be pretty easy to redo everything if we had to. Just run into the forest, let a wolfos attack me, and then stumble into this place and get lost.
So, we're lost in the creepy dark forest? I totally didn't see that one coming.
It's just so infuriating, Link exclaimed. I spent a good half an hour collecting all of this. He kicked the wood, which made his snapper cuts hurt. Ah, ouch.
I tried warning.
Link glared up at her before she could finish, and Tattle sighed.
I guess there's no point in blaming anyone. Let's just make a plan.
She looked around the dark forest in all directions. Each was the exact same as the other. Trees with rain falling through the canopy, a cloudy sky overhead, and wet grass underneath.
I think our options are limited. We could walk left, or right, or forwards, or backwards, or we could play the Song of Time and get out of here. Then we can ask the masked salesman what's going on.
No, Link said immediately, picking a random direction and leaving the clearing behind. Every time we play that song, we leave behind people to be flattened by the moon.
No, we don't,
the White Fairy replied.
We're still here, just back in time, and besides, aren't you getting kind of hungry? Everything that witch had you eat looked disgusting. And we already spent the entire first day without eating. Even I'm starting to get hungry, and fairies don't eat very often. You're a human.
Link only took notice of his growling stomach then. He'd been on countless adventures that required limited food, but recently he'd gone through a year of steady meals at Hyrule Castle. It would take time to get used to hunger again. Let's just find Kome. We can worry about food once we get back to Kotake's.
Fine, whatever you say.
You'll come back, won't you? What? Link asked, turning around to face Tattle.
What?
The fairy asked.
I said fine, whatever you say.
No, after that, he said.
After that, you stopped walking and asked me what I said.
No, Tattle, he exclaimed. I thought I heard you say something else, but it didn't sound like you.
Then it probably wasn't me?
Tattle said, clearly confused.
Are you starting to hear voices now? Who did it sound like?
Never mind, Link said, dismissing the conversation.
No, seriously, who?
Someone from Hyrule, no one you know.
Link, I'm tired of you constantly dismissing every conversation we have about you. I'm not giving up this time. Who was it? Your girlfriend?
Link shook his head, though he couldn't help but smile as they kept walking. It was the Princess of Hyrule, Zelda.
Ooh, a princess. Lucky you, fairy boy. I think you've mentioned her once or twice before. So, you thought you heard her say something?
Yeah, the last thing she said to me, actually, before I left to find Navi. You'll come back, won't you? Tattle took a moment to respond.
Well, will you?
I hope so, he answered. I really miss that place, and her. But first I have to save Termina and find my horse.
I forgot about your horse,
Tattle said.
What about Navi? Won't you look for her too?
This time it was Link who didn't have an answer. I don't know, he eventually said. She did leave me. I'm not sure if she'd want to be found wherever she is. Do you really have to go? The voice asked again. Link stopped abruptly. Instead of looking at Tattle, he looked past her, searching for the source of the voice. Only the pattering of raindrops on the forest floor answered him. Until he saw someone. Off in the distance and behind a tree. They vanished behind the wooden trunk as soon as Link spotted them. Hey! He exclaimed, running past his confused fairy.
What happened?
Tattle asked. She followed regardless as Link reached the tree and looked behind it. No one was there. He looked around hastily for a sign of the pursuer, and he spotted movement further into the trees. Link sprinted that way immediately.
Link, what did you see?
Tattle asked. He didn't answer, singularly focused on his target.
Link!
He paid enough attention not to trip over roots on the forest floor. His wet bangs stuck closely on his forehead as he ran through the thick rain. Navi left you, Link. I'm still here. You don't have to go. Zelda's voice somehow rang through the trees so calmly. even as the person ahead of him sprinted so fast.
Zelda!
Link called out. The only response was in his chest. It began throbbing acutely with pain again. The Skull Kid's dark magic festered.
You left me, Link. What happened is your fault, because you weren't there to stop it.
Ah! Zelda!
Link screamed now. This isn't real, he thought. This can't be real. Yet, still, he ran after her. Link stopped when he realized he'd lost track of the stranger. He screamed her name again, looking around to no avail.
Link!
Tattle exclaimed, finally catching up to him.
What's wrong with you?
Link ignored her again, spotting that distant, dark shape and continuing his pursuit.
Snap out of it!
Tattle shouted.
Link! Your eyes! Something's wrong!
He didn't pay her warning any mind. Link had finally reached the stranger. Someone, back turned, stood in between two trees. Link grabbed their shoulder and spun them around. He saw her blue eyes. She seemed shocked, and then she fell back into the grass, away from him as she dissolved into the rain around her.
You came too late, Link.
Zelda!
He stood on a beach, staring at a massive fortress wall that ran from cliff to cliff. The waves of the ocean crashed and fell behind him. They wouldn't be expecting him for quite a while now. They thought he'd already robbed them of everything and had no reason to return. But he'd learned the truth. The mask had told him. He'd fooled the pirates into stealing the eggs, yes, but they hadn't been enough. Majora wanted the eggs destroyed. If they weren't, then the temple could be accessed. And that couldn't happen. The swamp, the mountain, and the canyon had been secured days ago, but now the ocarina had given his enemies time. Time was a luxury he could not allow. He glided gracefully into the air, landing atop the gate and staring down at the fortress's outskirts. There was only one watchboat on the lake. The red-headed, dark-skinned pirate sat sleepily as she circled the water. She looked bored. He felt obliged to entertain her. She noticed him as he came down, confused at first, but she soon read his hostile intent. Raising her spear did absolutely nothing to save her. He flicked his wrist, and purple flames enveloped the boat. She crumbled into pieces with her vessel as it caved in and sank to the bottom of the lake.
That was funny.
The mask had taught him that. Death was fun. Majora had been kind enough to explain that to him. True, it had taken him a long time to understand. He'd been reluctant at first, afraid. But he soon learned to trust Majora. Majora would never lie to him. He flew toward a massive wall marking the fortress's entryway. A few of the guards looked up as he passed overhead, likely stunned. He landed on top of the wall, looking down at the open-roofed plaza connecting all the major rooms and buildings. A tall watchtower was in the center. The pirate manning it noticed him immediately, freezing in terror. She ran quickly across the bridge, which connected to a balcony along the fortress walls. He smiled. When he shot his arm out in the tower's direction, its base exploded. The fire rose skyward, catching onto the wood as its supports blew out. The tower leaned over as orange flames spiraled toward the top. The bridge fell with it, sending the pirate into the fiery debris as it all collapsed into the plaza. The others screamed. He only smiled wider, laughing as he descended to confront those on the ground. He held out his palms to release purple flames that smoothly rolled over the cold stone floor. The beautiful dark dance of fire ensnared any pirate that attempted to flee. The destruction was bright in his eyes, hidden by the mask. He cackled maniacally as the moon gazed onward with those same orange eyes.
Link!
Link opened his eyes, but the fire did not go away. It was all around him, cackling madly as brilliant purple light engulfed the dense trees. He gasped, taking in hot, smoky air that was devoid of moisture. It continued burning brightly despite the light rainfall, defying the dark night. Link was lying on the forest floor, and he quickly got to his feet. He turned, the purple fire reflected in his eyes as he looked for a break in the inferno. They were surrounded. Tattle floated with him in the fire's eye, wildly searching for an escape.
Look what you did!
Tattle exclaimed.
We have to get out of here!
His survival instincts trumped his confusion as he spun in the dense heat. He realized the fire came from the tree's canopy downward. It was only inches away from reaching the grass. The death of the pirates burning in the Skull Kid's wrath was still pressed into his mind's eye, preventing him from seeing clearly. Eventually, he saw it, a point in the circle of fire where it hadn't connected. Link ran for the gap and the fairy followed. He leapt from the inferno onto wet grass on the other side. He wasted no time lying there, running further away from the blaze. Once they were a safe distance, Link and Tattle turned around. The oddly colored fire grew, surviving the gentle rainstorm. It already spread past the initial circle, catching quicker in stretches of forest that were shielded from the water. Link noticed that the rain was coming to an end. Soon, the dark forest fire would show no mercy. The two merely stood there, each looking up in awe at the wave of purple destruction. Columns of smoke plumed into the nighttime sky. I did that? Link stammered.
I don't know,
Tattle answered.
You thought you were running after Zelda, but you seemed really determined, like you honestly thought she was there. But you were angry too.
She swallowed as if afraid to continue.
Link, your eyes turned dark purple. The exact color of the fire in the Skull Kid's lightning. It was scary. It was like you were him.
The fire carried that ominous note, filling their eyes with a radiant darkness. That's terrifying, the boy thought. When I fainted, I was him, Link explained. He was at this fortress near a beach, and the Skull Kid, he burned so many people to death, and he was laughing while he did it. Tattle didn't respond. Link turned away as the memory replayed itself. That wasn't the scariest part. I wanted to laugh too, Tattle. I felt and thought the same things. It's like we were the same person. He was on the verge of tears as he shook his head. His chest wasn't hurting anymore. It was the complete opposite. The scar burnt into his body felt good, as if satisfied by the presence of the imp's dark magic. What does it mean, Tattle? He asked. She wasn't sure what to say, merely watching the fire reflected in his face. A monkey cut their conversation short. The creature excitedly ran toward them. The small, light brown animal stopped right behind them.
Hey!
The fluffy monkey exclaimed, unable to hold still. They bounced up and down excitedly on all fours and only came up to Link's waist. A monkey? Link thought. They looked up at the boy and fairy, eyes shining with hope as if they had found gods. Their attention was diverted quickly by the purple flames. Now that the rain had stopped, it was spreading quickly and ruthlessly, robbing the air of moisture. The monkey stammered nervously.
Okay, follow me.
The creature looked back up at them, waiting for a response. Link and Tattle exchanged a glance before turning back to the monkey. Listen, Link said, the intense heat drawing closer to their backs. We're looking for someone, and now that there's a fire, we have to find her right away. Have you seen an old witch lady named Kome? She should be very small, with a long nose, probably old. The monkey nodded, as if that's what they'd been saying all along. The creature beckoned them with their hand.
Okay, follow me.
The monkey turned to run hastily away from the fire, not giving the boy or fairy a chance to follow.
Hey, wait up!
Tidal exclaimed as she flew after them. Link waited behind for only a moment, still in complete shock at what he'd supposedly done. He turned once more to look at the raging dark magic as it destroyed the wildlife. His head had to crane back to fully encompass its might. Hotake's words returned to him.
It's not just a mark, it's a curse! Some of the dark magic is still inside of you. You and your ocarina. Where the black marks are, I'm not sure what that means yet, but it's not going away. It could spread, it could corrupt you, it could kill you.
Link left the glowing beacon of warmth and destruction behind.